Hi, I'm Sharon Dennis. I'm studying honours in the Natural Wilderness and Environmental Studies at the University of Tasmania. I'm talking today about the project that I'm doing for my honours and my aims and what I hope to achieve. So the first aim is to establish a list of the Tasmanian native foods and medicines and the uses and the values. So in Tasmania there's a lot of information about the foods, but as individuals I'm hoping to put that picture all together. So not only the bush foods, but also every food that was eaten prior to colonisation, settlement or invasion. The main area that I'm actually focusing on for my first aim to start off with is the Friendly Missions, which is a book of Robinson's diaries, who is a person who was in Tasmania over 200 years ago, who actually had the job of rounding up Tasmanian Aboriginal people, and he wrote his diaries on his journey on that process of doing that when the people came here for colonisation to Tasmania. The journal is exposing a lot of areas of interest, so not only am I looking at the plant resources, but I'm looking at the relationships with the resources for other animals. For example, the wallaby was only just thought to have eaten all the grasslands, but in the journals it actually shows that it was eating the kangaroo apple as well and the native cranberries. So the association with the hunting for the wallaby and the association with the native plants in Tasmania. With that, I'm also looking at what those plants contain, so the nutritional value of the plants, which I'm trying to put alongside the journal writings of Robinson and the known uses of Tasmanian Aboriginal resources for having the plants and what was eaten and what was used. I've noticed one thing quite significant, and in a lot of areas that has indications of where there was potential starvation, where the Tasmanian Aboriginal people could no longer assess their food resources, and they were noticed to be starving at the time and returning from their hunting and actually being in poor condition and quite hungry. From looking at the nutritional resources within the plants, I hope to also map out what kind of areas that Tasmanian Aboriginal people used for the native food and what that was in relation with their diet and the resources. From that I'm hoping to progress into my second aim, which is mapping the Tasmanian native food and medical plants across Tasmania, which is a phenomenal job, but I hope to actually locate the sources where the predominant plants are and to actually view what's left after I establish what the plants and food are in Tasmania. Then I'll look at actually what's left in Tasmania currently and try and map that out on the resources that we have. The mapping out, I hope to determine the abundance or lack of native food that's available, and to determine where and how these were currently used. So once I establish what the foods are, and then I map out where the foods are, I hope then to actually move on to my third aim, which is determine current policy and law relating to the Tasmanian native food and medical uses of the plants. So I'll look for documents relating to the policies of the food and the medical plants as well, and to see what actually exists and what's being mentioned in policy, and what are the policy considerations in Tasmania in general when there's a look at an area for development or any relation of preservation. So it's to look at the totality of where food is actually mentioned in Tasmania policy and the importance of it. I also hope to look out for the national priorities of food and the food uses and how that could relate to Tasmania as well. My aim 4, which is quite large, and I'm not sure that the scope of aim 4 will be as elaborate as I hope for, but I also look at presenting the policy options and the protection and management of native food and medicine to be considered with the Tasmanian Aboriginal population and within the government. So I hope to provide all the information to the Tasmanian Aboriginal community and as a resource, as well as to the understanding of the cultural values of the food, and then to actually have the discussion with the government about what that is. So some examples that I've come across so far with the food, I have a few samples here. So I've got the Tasmanian mountain pepper, or the pepperberry. So the uses of that were in with the food. There's also the native raspberry, which you can make jams out of from the fruit on the current day. But it's quite abundant in Tasmania. And of course we've got the mandra, which is growing from my feet. I'm not sure if you can see it. But we've got she oak. We've got the banksia. And each one of those plants has a food property and an Aboriginal use for that actual particular plant. So I'm trying to break down what that is as well, and to actually list everything that I can find to try and put it together. And that's what my thesis is about for my honours. Thank you.